Hello Moto GP enthusiasts. Welcome back to ZNGP Today. Yamaha's big engineering pivot this year, switching the YZR-M1 from an inline-four to AV4 architecture, has been one of the season's headline stories. Pramac rider Jack Miller lays out why the change was necessary, how the two engine layouts alter weight distribution and rear grip, and what the decision meant for Yamaha's 2025 development program. Maverick Vinales has been keeping busy in Valencia as he continues his winter training program, this time riding a Yamaha street bike at the Ricardo Tormo track day as part of a steady return to full fitness. After a season interrupted by a shoulder injury, Vinales is rebuilding his body and his race rhythm ahead of 2026. Don't forget to click subscribe button and the bell icon for MotoGP news update. Miller frames Yamaha's move to AV4 as a strategic correction rather than an admission of failure. The inline layout had long been a strength for Yamaha: superb front-end feel, predictable turn-in, and a package that made the bike feel solid entering corners. But with the latest Michelin tires putting premium emphasis on rear traction, Yamaha found the inline's front-biased weight distribution increasingly costly in race pace and tire life. The V4's layout shifts mass rearwards and gives engineers a different starting point for extracting consistent rear grip, a quality modern MotoGP racing increasingly demands. For Yamaha, the decision was painful in the short term because it split development resources, but Miller says it was the only realistic technical route to fixing a chronic deficiency. The issues with the inline project were not getting solved, so it takes a sharp turn like they have done with the V4. In practical terms, that meant a heavier investment in prototype development, new chassis runs, and rapid learning cycles, exactly the kind of technical gamble that can pay off over a full development year but also creates a difficult transition window. Miller gives a concise mechanical explanation. With an inline engine, a bank of 4 cylinders sits farther forward, concentrating mass over the front axle. With AV4, 1-cylinder bank sits further back, moving the center of gravity rearward. That subtle repositioning alters how the motorcycle loads the rear tire under acceleration and mid-corner, the region where modern Michelin rubber now demands stability and traction. Riders feel the difference immediately: less tendency to hang the front and more usable drive exiting corners. For Yamaha, the physics are simple. If you can't fix the rear on an inline without compromising the rest of the package, changing the engine architecture rewrites the fundamental constraints engineers work within. That rear bank of cylinders on the V4 means everything moves back a bit more. It's just the layout and the way everything fits. That's the way it works with the V4 versus an inline. Translating that physics into lap time gains requires coordinated work across fuel positioning, frame geometry, swing arm length, and electronics calibration, all areas Yamaha began adjusting once the V4 prototype showed potential. The switch came with a cost. Yamaha chose to prioritize the V4, which inevitably slowed final season development of the inline machine. Miller's candid observation, that evolving two fundamentally different projects at the same time would demand impossible manpower, explains why Yamaha had to accept short-term concessions in 2025. Engineers were redeployed, test schedules reorganized, and the team accepted slower iteration on the inline so the V4 could be prepped for Valencia and beyond. Miller argues this concentration of resources was the sensible engineering trade-off: concentrate energy where the long-term solution lies, even if that sacrifices some short-term stability. So I think it would not have been feasible for any manufacturer to be developing one bike, as normal, as well as the new V4. The amount of manpower you would need to do that is impossible. That trade-off helps explain Yamaha's weary 2025 results. While the V4 showed glimpses of improved rear grip, the transition cost time, and time in MotoGP often equals lost points. The V4 decision doesn't happen in isolation. By 2025, every other major factory was already using V4 layouts, meaning Yamaha's switch was also about parity. Miller notes the practical consequence. Once the V4 began to show rear grip promise, the focus shifted to producing race-ready machines and extracting consistent performance across riders. But the grid effect is broader. The last inline win, Suzuki's Alex Rins in 2022, now looks set to remain a historical outlier as manufacturers converge on similar architectures. For Yamaha, the stakes are immediate. They finished last in the constructors' standings in 2025 and sit in concession ranking D for 2026. But the V4 gives them a path back, provided winter testing converts prototype promise into race pace. The issues with the inline project were not getting solved, so it takes a sharp turn like they have done with the V4. The repeating of Miller's line underscores the season's narrative: painful course correction now, potential competitiveness later. And whether Yamaha can make that later arrive quickly will define their 2026 prospects. Jack Miller's explanation turns a technical debate into an operational story. The V4 was a necessary engineering detour to reclaim rear grip and long-term competitiveness, but it came at the cost of 2025 development momentum. For Yamaha fans, the message is clear: expect a bumpy transition but an honest attempt to fix a deep-rooted issue. For rival teams, it's a reminder that architecture choices reshape development timelines and that the championship often rewards the teams willing to make bold technical choices. Two weeks after the season finale, Vinales was spotted at the Ricardo Tormo circuit taking part in on-track training, not on a Moto GP prototype, but on a Yamaha road bike alongside the circuit's riding school. The session was part of a broader fitness and feel recovery program: low-risk track time to rebuild confidence, sharpen body position, and keep the riding senses tuned without the physical stress of a full GP run. The footage posted by the circuit shows the rider moving through controlled drills rather than outright pushing for lap times, the sensible first steps in a carefully managed return. Maverick Vinales continues his winter training program in Valencia. Those low-stress laps are commonly used by riders to re-educate muscle memory after injury. They let engineers and coaches see how posture and inputs translate off the bike before committing to high-speed testing. Vinales' 2025 season was hampered by a shoulder crash in Germany that proved more complex than first diagnosed. A 16-week recovery was outlined and multiple comeback attempts followed, some curtailed by persistent pain. That sequence cost him valuable training time and led to a measurable loss of muscle mass. Since Valencia, he's been intensifying gym work and on-bike sessions, supported publicly by new rider coach Jorge Lorenzo, who's been documenting the process and supervising targeted strength, conditioning and riding drills designed specifically to stabilize the shoulder and rebuild race readiness. The combination of physiotherapy, gym sessions and careful track time is the standard recipe for returning MotoGP athletes. The emphasis now is injury-proofing, not rushing speed. Despite the interruptions, Vinales delivered moments of influence for Tech 3 KTM. Early in the season, his settings were copied across the factory riders, and he showed he could lead the development curve. He also briefly reached the podium at Qatar, although that result was later adjusted due to a tire pressure penalty. The season painted him as an experienced reference rider whose input still mattered, the type of rider a team leans on to stabilize setups across a race weekend. That technical leadership is an asset for Tech 3 as they prepare for 2026. A fully fit Vinales could accelerate early season setup direction and help the squad extract performance quickly. Adding Jorge Lorenzo as a rider coach is a bold move with upside. Lorenzo, a three-time MotoGP champion, brings experience in preparation, mental approach, and race craft. His public comments signal confidence that structured coaching can sharpen Vinales' competitive edge. For 2026, Vinales will remain with Tech 3 KTM alongside Enea Bastianini, and the season will be a test of whether regained fitness plus refined preparation translate into the consistency the team needs. The narrative to watch is simple: body healed, head focused, technical input strong. Then Vinales returns to playing a leading role in KTM's results. If the coaching plan accelerates Vinales' return to peak condition, Tech 3 will have both fitness and experience to rely on through the early rounds, a decisive advantage in a tight field. Keep an eye on the next wave of on-track testing in the preseason programs. Lap time isn't the first metric here. Consistency, shoulder stability, and the ability to complete full test days without pain will be the true indicators that Vinales is ready to convert training into race results. For now, the Valencia track day and Lorenzo's involvement are positive signals that the Tech 3 rider is heading the right way. Thanks for watching ZNGP Today, and this is your Moto GP news update. And see you next time!